So, what does it really mean to be organized? Let's unpack this together. Being organized means that you have systems in place. A system is a workflow, like a pattern or a process that repeats itself over and over again. If you think about your world as a whole, there are actually systems all around you at all times. Let me give you some real and tangible examples so that you can visualize them. First, let's think about our universe. Our planet, planet Earth, revolves around the sun, right? And then our moon revolves around the Earth. That's a working system in and of itself. It's also part of a much larger system because there are more planets that make up our galaxy, right? Each day, the same rotation, what we call days, happens over and over again. And that's a working system that you cannot control. However, some systems you can control, and that's what we're talking about in this course. So let's now jump to our home. Each day you wake up and you head over to your closet to put on some clothes. When those clothes get dirty, what happens? Well, they go to the laundry, they get washed and dried, and then they go back into the closet so that you can use them again at some point. And that's just one of the systems that run continuously in your household. Naturally, there may be variations in the location of the washing machine, the size of your closet, or who actually does the laundry, right? And that's fine. Variables will always be a reality, but the outcome is the same. The cycle keeps going, the system is there, and the goal is to keep everything running smoothly. Anybody who's ever been stuck with a giant amount of laundry will attest to that. Another running system in your home is your car. It's likely parked in the garage, right? But when you want to go out, you take it for a spin, you fill up the tank, and then you put it back in the garage. And to give you even another example, your culture is a system. I grew up in Sweden, so I know the language and the traditions of that country. It's obvious to me. It wouldn't be so obvious to somebody who's never been there. And that's why my immigration experience was such a traumatic event. I had to start all over from scratch with brand new systems. And even the simplest of them, like understanding what people said or how to bank, was very, very challenging. Now, you may never have emigrated, so you can't relate to that example, but perhaps you've moved homes. That is just a simpler, smaller, more condensed version of the same thing. So think about it. In your old home, you had all sorts of systems in place, from how your kitchen functioned, to where your belongings were stored, to how your mail was sorted, to where you put your groceries. And overnight, all of those systems became obsolete. You scrap them all at the same time. And then now you have to set up new systems all over again. And sometimes even getting the basics up and running can be very difficult. And that's why moving homes is such an overwhelming and taxing experience. It's because setting up so many systems at once is a daunting endeavor. And it means making a lot of quick decisions in very rapid succession. You know, it's not for the faint of heart. So I want you to see that there are systems all around us, from large ones to small ones. Everything in this world is a part of a system somehow. Even you. You are an intrinsic cog in so many different systems, which makes you really, really important. And we need you to be at your best in order for everything to run smoothly. So the key is to understand what these systems are, how they operate, and how they affect you. You have to be aware of them because they're going to run with or without your cooperation. So it's really important that we get this right. Sometimes our systems break down, and then you need to be able to fix them. And if you aren't even able to articulate what a system is, then you have no chance of fixing it whatsoever. It's going to be really hard on you. So in this course, we take a stab at fixing all of this by raising your awareness of what systems are all around you and how they work. Some systems are going to be more obvious than others, and like I said, that's likely because of familiarity. Likewise, some decisions are easier to make and more obvious than others, and that's another piece of this. For example, it's pretty clear that your car goes in the garage, right? That's what a garage is for. It's also pretty easy to figure out that your cookware goes in the kitchen because that's where the stove is. And likewise, your clothes go in the closet. That room has been specifically designed for that purpose. Everyone knows that. And the reason you know that is because you have lifelong experience with those systems. But what about the systems that aren't so obvious? What about those? Well, that's where you need to step in and decide for yourself how you want this to function. And it's a bit harder because it's not immediately obvious all the time. So what about your photos, for example? Where are they stored? I ask because I happen to be a certified photo organizer, and I have spent many years helping people trying to answer that very question. You could store them in the living room if we're talking about actual physical analog prints. You could also store them in a box in a closet, right? The choice is more flexible, and there's no clear right or wrong here. It's more of a preference thing. And the same goes for your digital photos, Are they permanently stored on your computer, on a hard drive, in the cloud? The choice is more difficult to make, and if it's never made, then you will naturally feel disorganized. This is just one example, but there are many more instances like this where you have to step in and create the system for yourself because it's more of a preference thing than anything else. And unless that happens, the system will not exist and you cannot maintain it. You always have to define it first. Let me repeat that because it's really important. You cannot maintain a system that does not exist. Okay? So if we go back to the example with the car, a system like that would be super obvious to someone who's always lived in a home with a garage. If you've been around that system since you were a kid, it'll be completely obvious to you. Nothing strange about it. Of course you park your car in the garage, duh. But that answer would not come so easily to someone who has never owned a car, who has never seen a garage, or someone who lives in a condo maybe without a parking spot. It is all a matter of perspective, access, and experience. And all of our experiences are unique to us. It's based on how and where we grew up. So I'll say it again. The system has to exist, and if it doesn't, we have to step in and create it ourselves. Once you define your system, you can learn it, and then you can maintain it. Now, I also want to point out that sometimes there is a system, but it is the wrong one. So let's say that you also store your cookware alongside your clothes in the closet. Could it work? Sure, but it would be an awful waste of time to run back and forth anytime you wanted to cook. It wouldn't make any sense. So we also have to find the path of least resistance for your system to run smoothly so that you don't waste time and energy unnecessarily. So there are systems all around us. Some work because they've been created intentionally, either by us or by somebody or something else. Some systems don't work for various reasons. Perhaps they need to be more clearly defined, or maybe we simply need to make some decisions around how we want them to work. And then other times, our systems might be broken or we have bottlenecks to deal with. And when we are unfamiliar with the systems that are around us and how they work, that's when we feel disorganized. It does not mean that you are a disorganized person. Please understand that. The feeling of disorganization is nothing more than a lack of familiarity. It doesn't mean that all hope is gone. No. It doesn't mean you can't learn. No. Anyone can implement and learn a new system. It just takes a bit of practice. And the key to optimizing your world and making life easy for you is awareness, clarity, and experience. How do I know that? Well, because you have already learned systems plenty of times before, ever since childhood, simply by growing up. It's just that then it may have been a little bit more obvious. So this time we just have to dig a little bit deeper and find more examples. So in the next lesson, we're going to assess which camp you are in. Do you feel organized or disorganized? In other words, do you have systems in place or do you not? Do they work? Or do we need to recreate them from scratch? Are there bottlenecks to fix? And if so, how do we do that? We're off to a good start. I hope this clarifies some things for you. So let's keep going. I'll meet you in the next video.